2022 at 5 o'clock p.m. I'm calling the planning board meeting to order. First on the agenda is minutes. I think we're going to table that.
No, we can do it.
We can do it.
What was the date though? Two weeks ago.
Yes.
No, 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago.
Ken, do you have the date of the last meeting?
I think that was January.
Was it the 31st? 28th? 31st. 31st.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written for January 31st, 2022.
I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Correspondence?
Haven't gotten it.
So board, the minutes were actually for the 24th.
Pardon me?
The minutes were for the 24th. January 24th?
24th?
Yeah.
Okay, we got to do it then. Will we make a rescission?
No, hang on a second. Correct. You're right. No, just read.
Due to an error on the previous minutes, a date error, I'd like to clean up that motion to say, I'll make a motion to approve the January 24th, 2022 minutes as written.
I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Nothing for correspondence.
Ken, do you have anything you want to go over with us while we're in between?
So I think the only thing was, I asked Kathy and Jim to put on the agenda for just information for the planning board. As I've mentioned in the past, for the past few meetings, PVPC is doing some regulatory work and also regulatory work meaning reviewing stormwater, reviewing some zoning, but we'll be presenting that at a future planning board meeting. But one of the other components of that grant work, which is through the Municipal Vulnerabilities Preparedness Program, the MVP grant, is to update the master plan to incorporate the elements and some of the discussion that was done a couple years back on climate resilience. You did a community resilience building workshop as part of an MVP planning grant. And some of those concepts are being brought forward to update the master plan elements to incorporate the energy and sustainability type recommendations. So that's just, you know, what is a component of that work is a survey, a community-wide survey that I provided the link to the planning board, and, you know, in your review and or to actually complete the survey, it's to gauge the residents of Granby and their thought process with regards to climate resiliency and climate adaptation, knowing that we have more severe storm events as well as just the erratic weather and some of the climate issues that are pervading. So the intent is to incorporate into a final report and into an update of the master plan this engagement effort through a community survey. And so the thought will be to do a media release, send it out to local newspapers, put it on the town website, but allow for the residents to fill out the survey and provide some context for the master plan update, as well as context for the planning board when we present, or when PVPC presents either regulatory, some regulations to look at, as well as when the planning board is to approve a master plan, the master plan elements, because that is the purview of the planning board, is to accept and approve master plan discussion. So that's the biggest announcement. And I don't know if the board had a chance to look at, but there's a typical, it's a sentiment survey where you have the questions geared towards values of climate resilience, how you experience climate, how has it impacted your life in the past couple of years, but presenting that into a final report and incorporate in a future update to the master plan.
So are you looking from the board to approve for submission to the town's residents that questionnaire that you sent us?
Typically, it depends on how the board wants to approach it. When I work with other communities on survey efforts, they're usually, the board usually serves as like an advisory. Some make a motion to approve the survey as it goes out to the residents, but it's up to the board. I don't know in the past if this is something that the board has ever taken a stance on. More so, it's receiving comments from the board. If you do desire to, make a motion so that we have that support within the report when we finalize that, but also to provide additional comments as you think, as you foresee. Or if you identify some folks that it may be helpful to maybe pinpoint some of those questions to go to certain people that may not, participate usually. But that's more so, yeah. If the board chooses to do that, then they can. But the survey will be, it will be shared.
Have you guys read it?
No.
I'll be quite honest with you, I read it,
Okay.
and it just seemed a lot of Chicken Little, the sky is falling, the sky is falling,
That's fair. I think,
As far as what?
climate change and tree cutting and shade protection areas. You have to read it. What's it, 5 page? No, it's 5 minutes to
Yeah.
complete the survey, that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was just some stuff that I guess it's become a fact of life or a way of life now. But I don't personally,
Sure.
I don't necessarily agree with it.
Sure.
I agree with some of it, but that's me. So, we'll take a look at it and we'll discuss it and move it forward. Hello?
Sorry, I take all my kids to the dentist, so I told Lillian I'd be late.
Anything else for us, Ken?
As we were entering, Jason asked about training that may be available to the board at some point through the Citizen Planner Training Collaborative. I know some board members that I work with like to attend those. It's kind of, if even for a refresher or, you know, just to understand the responsibilities and roles of planning boards, ZBAs, those land use authority boards. That training will be starting probably next month, but it's offered through Citizen Planner Training Collaborative. And at this point, I think it's going to be all virtual. So it'll be over Zoom. Normally, they have a day-long training in Worcester. That was like 3 years ago, the last time, 2 years ago was the last time they had it. Where you have a multitude of different types of workshops, writing special permit decisions, understanding vested rights, and some other, you know, neat land use question type things that a planning board may face. Those trainings will begin in March. But I'll keep the board posted.
Do you plan on attending?
I might attend one or two sessions. They're pretty good. I've attended them in the past. I usually attend the ones that I need a refresher on, particularly like site plan and writing decisions. I may attend that. But.
You guys have a copy of the minute?
Oh,
Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the regular planning board meeting.
I'll make a motion to close the regular planning board meeting and reconvene after the scheduled public hearing.
Hearings. Do we have a second?
I'll second
Any further conversation?
that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, new business. This is a continuation of the public hearing to consider the petition of Poltrons Inc. applicant Ronald L. Herrick, William D. Herrick Jr., and David P. Herrick, owners, seeking site plan approval under section 6.3 of the Granby zoning bylaws regarding the proposed truck parking and dumpster area for the purpose of overnight parking for 10 trucks and the storage of empty dumpsters approximately 13,083 square feet of gravel at 4, 6, and portions of 8 West State Street, and known as at Assessor's Map 4, Parcel 3, 2-2, 6-1, in the town of Granby. The zoning district is industrial. So, we continued it from the last hearing so that we could get further clarification from the Board of Health and hopefully get some feedback from Conservation, which we have. The conversation I had with the chair for the Board of Health with Dick Bombardier was basically discussing the email that you presented to us at the previous hearing. And although their remarks were in good intention, we came to an understanding that paving was not advantageous to accomplish what he thought we might be able to accomplish. Further discussion from myself, not representing the planning board, but my opinion on this was that the area in which they were discussing about paving would require stormwater management and a lot of other things that you would need to do if you didn't have for impervious surfaces. And we have nothing in the bylaw that I'm aware of to fall back on and say, this is what the bylaw says and you have to do this. What I'm falling back on, and of course the board's going to speak to it as well, is that there's already regulations through DOP, laws stating how trucks over a certain GVW are supposed to be maintained and managed. So that was a discussion that I had with the Board of Health. Since then, we got a letter from Conservation, and the commission will not require, I'm just going to read the lower part. The commission will not require a permit for the purpose of work with the following stipulations: no washing of dumpsters on the property, no expansion. The Conservation does not want any expansion of paved areas without permitting through the Conservation Commission. And the last item, no storage of waste products in dumpsters on site. And then if you have any issues, please contact Bill Shaheen, co-chair of the Conservation Commission, if you have any questions. So evidently they're kind of on the same page as what we had discussed at the last meeting about paving something. All it's going to do is create more runoff. It didn't make sense to us.
Mr. Chairman, can I just speak for 1 second?
Yeah, just
Okay,
give me a
we're
minute,
done. I
please.
just wanted to,
Yep. So with that being said, the board did discuss some other conditions similar to what the Conservation is saying as well, as far as, no washing of dumpsters. If you're going to wash dumpsters, you're going to have to come back with some sort of a design and have it approved through planning board and Conservation of how you're going to detain and what will happen to the byproduct from the dumpster washing. We discussed putting some sort of screening in on the 202 side of the area designated for parking on the gravelled area between yourself and the neighbor of Robert and Nancy Belair. I believe you guys, you agreed to put some sort of planting in there. We also discussed, I think, no parking of vehicles within a certain distance from the property line.
Yeah, I believe that. The number was 40 feet.
40 feet, I think. 40 feet from the water well.
For the water well.
East properties.
So there's no big deal.
And I think you show that on here, so.
So there's more like 40 feet.
That's all I can remember off the top of my head from the last meeting.
The other thing was the signage.
Correct, the signage. Did anybody go up and look at the location of that site? Yeah. If you put it 40 feet back, you might as well stick it in one of your dumpsters. Nobody's gonna see it.
Thank you.
I think there's a sign out there. We can treat this separately too if the board doesn't feel comfortable approving it. But there's a sign already existing out there that's probably more like 20 feet, 15, 20 feet off the road. I'm not sure how the board wants to handle that. Any other comments or?
No, I think you covered them.
Okay. Yeah, that was good. Okay, so I'll yield the floor to you.
Good. Mark Reed from Heritage Land Surveying and Engineering. I just wanted to submit to the board a revised plan that we submitted to the Conservation Commission with some additional information relative to the wetlands and the riverfront area associated with Stony Brook, which is northerly on the property. Come on, fingers. So one of the items that is shown on the plan is that the wetlands that are on the adjacent property to the north in relationship to the proposed gravel area is 125 feet away. So there's a 100-foot buffer zones from wetlands. So we're outside of the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission with the proposed work. Furthermore, we took a measurement and added it to the plan with the distance from Stony Brook. And the total is 240 feet from Stony Brook. And there's a 200-foot riverfront area associated with Stony Brook. So we're outside of the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. We also have added a silt fence that's shown on the plan to protect against any potential erosion of soils during the construction of the gravel area, and have a detail on the plan to ensure that during the construction of the gravel area, it's protected further towards the north on the property itself. So I just wanted to submit that to the board, and it's dated January 31st. Again, we had talked about last meeting adding a 40-foot dimension to the plan to the closest corner of the parking area. So that's now shown on the site plan itself. And then we took a look at the concerns of the abutter. And I got a picture of that area, and there's an existing arborvitae row along his whole property line. And the arborvitaes are probably about 15 feet tall. You can barely see his house from if you were standing on the property itself. If the board wants additional arborvitaes or other type of plantings on the site itself, the applicant has no issue with that, but I just want to clarify that you can't see.
Those are on his property though.
They're on his
Yes.
property, not on his piece. Yes.
Boy, the way it was portrayed to the board, it was like there was standing timber there, but it was open and you could see.
Yeah,
it.
right, let me
Now
show.
I'm shocked
Yeah,
to hear this.
yeah, so
There's still some.
You can still see through it a little bit.
yeah, very little, so. But we have no issue with additional plantings. Where's the picture? You got it?
I have my phone.
You got it on the phone, yeah. I had it here.
This is looking from your property to
From our
this.
property to, Frankfurt.
Yeah, last,
The
I was on a,
older couple that was there.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is.
we don't have no issue. Or if you require more, it's not any controversial. You don't want to just overkill it either.
So that's what, if you were standing in where the whole gravel area is,
That's here.
looking towards this
So
property.
that's the butter. He can see you upstairs.
Yeah, They're not gonna plant anything that's gonna.
Right, it's gonna
I
change
mean,
that.
the last meeting, you agreed to plant some.
Yes.
um,
That's,
So
I just wanted
what
to
I
make
would-
sure that the board had the same plans that the Conservation Commission has and the town clerk.
So what does the board think about having them, instead of planting them on the property line, planting them closer to the proposed? Well, the gravel area. Not necessarily the whole piece of it, but say 15 feet off the, or 20 feet off the paved area, come back to. This is showing that, but it's not showing Oz's. Oz is back to here somewhere.
So what are you, you're trying to say we'll do a whole row from here back?
No. Well, I would say come off the gravel area 20 feet and run the row.
Okay.
I think I'd rather just see it along the property line. That way you know approximately where the property line is. You don't have this no man's land in between rows of arborvitae.
Can I have it, I haven't been here because I've been sick the last few meetings. I thought I'd give you that one, sure.
Did you review the last meeting? No, you're gonna have to put that on, so.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Is there anybody from the public, the butters, anybody that would like to? So we've
Are
got,
you looking for a motion?
not yet, I want to make sure we got all the conditions, before we,
Maybe a motion to close.
not quite yet. I want to make sure we're sure on this piece.
On the
You're talking,
arborvitae, and I don't know if this is possible, but, on this property, plant them on this property, and just talk with the neighbors and see what they would like. But I don't know if that's something you can nail in
no,
stone.
you can't, we got to put a condition on it.
Right.
We did a quick conversation outside the last meeting we together, and my plan was whatever they need from us, we just satisfy them 100%. And whatever she's still like in block review and stuff like that.
Yep.
Try to accomplish that.
That doesn't help us write a
I
decision
know.
to make sure it gets carried out. Your conversations are one
Of
thing.
course, yeah, I just want to,
Mr. Trump, did you get a chance to go to the property and see it?
Pardon me?
I know you mentioned you were going to go to the property yourself. Were you able to go take a look at it?
Oh, yeah.
So is this for the proposed additional everybody in regards to more of the Oz building or the older couple that was there?
Um, Both, because at the last meeting, we talked about screening. And I'm just trying to get an idea what we're talking for footage here. We're talking about 146 feet, say, round it up to 150. How would you plant these? zigzag, or would you?
Every 3 feet, there is arborvitae's, 30 arborvitae's.
Because they grow into each other.
Yeah. Is that acceptable?
Yeah. I don't see any issue.
Well, they're not here, and they were at the first hearing, and we agreed
Of course.
as a,
Yeah.
that we would accommodate that somehow or other, so.
John would have been very happy.
Okay, so we're gonna say that we need to plant along the lot 10, a lot 11 property line. Approximately, or how many arborvitae's did we say?
I think 30, the cover should cover the whole distance. I think. If they require 35, we put 35, but it's the board, and, screw our situation with arborvitae's.
Is the board good with that?
Yeah.
Ken, you can put some sort of language to that in the condition along that property line? A minimum
Yeah.
of- A
Does the
minimum of
board-
30 arborvitae's?
A minimum of 30 arborvitae's.
And you cut the other conditions as we were discussing it?
Yeah, so if the board was okay with the language, I think the language that the Conservation Commission for those 3 particular conditions,
Yes.
they seem okay. The other one was the no parking of vehicles
Within 40 feet of a property line?
within 40 feet of the property line. Is there the north property
The
line?
northerly property line.
The northerly property line? Okay.
For some reason, I remember.
Well, let me,
40 feet of the water well, that's what we
Is that
discussed.
the
Water well?
Yeah. If the person was.
we're talking just the proposed gravel area. We're not talking about anything else that's not being looked at with the site plan. It's only the proposed gravel area that no vehicles can be parked within 40 feet of a property line.
Oh,
Call
okay.
that out, so it's called.
What they do
out.
back here is, how can you not park something 40 feet off the property line back here?
Right.
That's totally something separate.
So this is notating this, however, from the proposed edge of the ground, 40 feet. Yeah.
Yeah, we're good with that 40 feet from now. That's what it was.
I don't remember to be quite honest with you, I don't remember the conversation about 40 feet from the well.
No, it was definitely from the property line. I
Right.
scaled,
That's what I thought.
I scaled from the property line to the corner of the closest corner of the proposed
Oh, that's what it was.
gravel area, and it's 40 feet.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And it's really kind of on the westerly property line.
Well, how about from the property line,
To the,
is shared with Ed Oz Company and Belair?
well, there, yes, that would be great.
Word it that way, Ken.
Who's the other?
I did have a quick question on the arborvitae. Is there a time limit that we have to have this planted by? Is it within the first?
Tomorrow.
I think springtime is a good time to plant.
So basically, the building inspector will oversee to make sure that you're complying with the permit and the conditions. So obviously, you're not gonna do much work out here until the ground thaws. So, before he issues you a permit of completion, a permit to operate, he'll want to see the RC. And if for some reason, let's say there's a shortage of them, and
Yeah, right now. it's
then he'll give you I can't speak for him, but typically he would give you a temporary permit and say, we'll revisit this in a month. Hopefully the arborvitae's are off the barges out on the west coast or wherever you're coming from.
John would have been very happy to bring him as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, but that's that's the code enforcement officer that'll oversee that. and he's pretty reasonable, so if there's a reason why you can't get what you need at that particular time, he'll give you some leeway.
Is that
Well,
correct? Bruce?
we could put a
Yes.
date to it, like September 1st, 2022,
We could.
Oh,
you know,
it's more like fair.
and that way there is a date pinned to it.
It's more like fair.
Greg has something to go by, and I think it's more than
More
adequate.
like fair, yeah.
Okay, I'm fine.
All right, that's good.
All right, so if there's no other discussion, any other comments by the applicant or the public or the board, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing. And I guess we
I'll just close the hearing.
close the hearing.
Do we have a second?
I'll second
Can't second.
it. Oh, I can't second it, sorry.
I'll second.
Do we have a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Ken, can you repeat back the conditions?
Sure. Let me just make a note here. So the conditions, no washing of dumpsters on the property, no expansion of paved areas without permitting through the planning board, because this is going to be the planning board site plan. No storage of waste products in dumpsters on site. Planting 30 or plant 30, at minimum 30 arborvitae along property,
Lot line 10 and 11.
lot line 10 and 11, yep, lot 10 and 11 property, and then no parking of vehicles within 40 feet of the westerly property line shared with Ed Odds and Company and Bel Air.
That should also read lot 10 and 11, just like the
Yes.
previous one did.
So I'll just make sure that those, yeah.
Now, what do we want to say for the sign? You guys ever get out there and take a look?
My simple way of thinking is if there's already a sign there,
It's not theirs, there's a sign there.
what sign is it?
There's a small,
Small landscaping.
1.5 foot by 1.5 foot square sign, just advertise a small landscaping business there. It's about,
Is that business leaving the premises when you
correct,
buy it?
with the grant money.
Yes.
Then why can't a sign just simply go
In the same place.
in the same footprint, however,
It may be
not
large.
to exceed whatever the industrial zone area standard is, or maximum is, square footage. If it does exceed that, then you're gonna have to come back for special permit.
Okay.
You're still gonna have to pull a permit through the building inspector.
You're great.
Do you want a condition on that?
The condition is that they can place a sign. Sign can be placed where the existing sign.
Greg's office is 100 feet away. He can come down and take a look, tell us the number.
Place a sign where existing sign exists not to exceed, where is it?
I will find out how big a sign is.
Yeah, I'm looking up, we are in the industrial zone, so.
Just put in not to exceed the
See-
allowable.
The allowable area in the industrial district. Yeah.
Allowable size.
Yeah.
Okay. So how does the board feel?
Bring it to a vote.
Yeah, I would-
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan for Paul Trains, Inc. As discussed, with the conditions Ken, could you read the conditions, please? Again?
Sure. No washing of dumpster on property, no expansion of paved areas without permitting through the planning board, no storage of waste products in dumpster on site. Planting of minimum 30 arborvitae along the westerly property line shared between Ed Oz Company and Valair, in parentheses, lot 10 and 11. No parking of vehicles within 40 feet of the westerly property line shared with Ed Osmond Company and Valair, in parentheses, lot 10 and 11. Place a sign where existing sign exists not to exceed allowable size in the industrial district, which is 25 square feet.
That's my motion. To approve it's subject to those conditions as read by Ken.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
You guys will,
Thank you very much.
you guys will get a decision within well, it'll be a couple of weeks, because we have to sign it before it goes off.
I'll ask you a question. How do we let our bank know we have a site plan approval to see our financing?
Well, in 2 weeks, unless, it'll be.
I'll work on the decision. It will be a draft until the board usually acts on signing off, but what I would suggest is, once the planning board has their, a draft set of minutes, that may be helpful for the bank. I know that's worked in the past, but you can say
And they'll
that,
trust us because
Yeah.
we know we haven't.
right, and then you can just say, decisional before planning.
Jim, so Alan hasn't been here
Thank you
since
very much,
December, right?
guys.
So I was
Have a
gonna
good
be-
night.
Thanks a lot, you guys as well.
Yep, good luck.
Thank you, good luck.
Mr. Beauregard, he hasn't been here since December, right? So I'd be fine to vote on that. Okay, just wanted to make sure, because I missed like a whole month from being sick.
Hearing hasn't been anything done since.
I was sick for like 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks I couldn't come. Where's Lillian?
It's a good meeting.
Sunday sick work.
Okay, so make a motion to open the next public hearing?
Not close it. We need to close it. We just voted on it, so now we close it. We close the public portion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to close the previous public hearing and to open the next public hearing that's on the agenda.
A second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Okay, it is 5:44, continuation of a public hearing to consider the petition of Alan Beauregard, applicant Daniel Darcy, owner, seeking site plan approval under section 6.3 of the Granby zoning bylaws and applicable to section 3, regulations 3.5.8, auto repair shop regarding existing business, AJ's Auto Body site plan for a proposed expansion at 39 West State Street and known as map 3D-C-25 of the town of Granby. The applicant is back. So, if I recall correctly, the conversation was that the Board of Health took issue to the
Parking of the cars.
parking of the cars in the vicinity of the wetlands.
Yeah, they were more concerned with the cars that were towed in, or being towed in, leaking antifreeze and oil and stuff like that. I met with, video conference with them, and they had some recommendations, which I I sent them off, my proposal and some pictures and stuff. They wanted a designated parking area for these cars, signs for the tow trucks, so where to park them, and how I was going to contain the spill, if there's any, which I've done. I've had signs made, I've bought containment containers. I sent them all pictures. I have them with me also if you care to see them.
I would.
Regarding the cars that were parking down the other end, as I tried to explain to them, they were cars that were already repaired. These are the cars that were parking down at the other end where Yankee Glass used to be. So here's one, just looking at the building. As you can see, we replaced this already. So this was already at the other end of the shop and been repaired. These are the cars that we're trying to park down there. This is another one that's been repaired, obviously not leaking any fluids, new hood and fenders. These are ready to go and be painted. Here's another one. This car will put the front end on again. We already repaired any leakage. The only reason these are out there during the day is because we don't have them inside for them, but we do move them in at night. So none of this is out at night. All the cars are in the back, and as far as the ones that are being towed in, before this all started, I had this style mats to put under to collect oil. Since then, I've bought these. These hold 6 gallons. They're actually this big and they're like this, and they're probably about that deep. They'll slide right under the car. It took me a month to get those. And these mats here come in a 150-foot roll. They're 3 feet. And again, I can slide it right under the car, if need be.
Okay, so, go ahead.
So this is an area, part of All Power's line here that I was able to negotiate with Dan to get this. You can fit probably 5 cars here, but as you can see, I put the sign just basically showing the signs that we had.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, the signs are about this big, but they look really small on this big, huge wall.
Right.
Anyways, you can see them. And that's really, we talked about a concrete pad or something like that, which they're not. So this is what I sent off to them. Of course, I won't hear back from them. I don't think they're there till Thursday.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. So, but I think as far as, that's what they wanted. And I think this was what was in question in our first meeting. And then I didn't realize that the Board of Health had, and I think it may have issues, something to do with the septic system, which has some contaminants in it. And I think they got notified by the DEP on that. And that's why they're concerned with the oil and liquids that are coming out of the cars. But that is in remediation. They've already started repairing that. It is contained to the septic area. So at some point, I believe, Dan believes that somebody had dumped oil down the floor drain or something. And then got into it's in the leach field. It's where it's contained to the leach field. And, they're working on that. They've already put in all the monitoring wells and everything around.
Over there.
To remediate that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else you want to add before I?
That's all I got.
So here's my take on this. AJ's has been operating there for however long. This all comes to light because of a site plan change of where they want to park vehicles, where they hadn't been in the past formally based on their former submission of a site plan. So the only thing I would like to discuss is the site plan change. Everything else is, just like the other plan we looked at, is irrelevant. even though the Board of Health was able to get them to change some of their procedures on how they operate over here, it had nothing to do with what was in question for the site plan approval, which was just the change.
To be able to park cars over in that area.
And now that it's explained to the board that the only vehicles they're parking over there are the ones that have already been repaired. And they park them there to be in queue or out of the way until they're ready to go and be painted. So the hazardous vehicles are going to remain where they've always remained, where they've always been. And part of the site plan that's not even under question because they've been operating that way. The only section that's in question is the expansion, of which the select board wanted approval from us that it was okay to park vehicles there.
Based on an expansion request through the, what's it, a number 2 license or
Yeah.
or B or something?
Class 2. So the used cars are basically parked. I don't have any out for sale at this point. The state police are waiting on my license so I can get some re-inspected, and then they go out for sale. And you know, they parked cars down there in the past. Yankee Glass was there. There's always been.
There's one thing to be doing, and there's another thing to file for an actual official permit to do it, and that's what brought our attention to the select board.
Yeah, well, I added it into my site plan when I started working on that.
Which was the right way of doing it.
I
So,
didn't know it was going to.
well, either did we.
Typically, when you had used cars though, weren't they parked along the front of the building? Yeah. They weren't down.
Yeah, they were right, so this is the building, they were parked on this end down here. Even though Yankee Glass was there,
Yeah.
that was one of the conditions that I could park the used cars right to the end of that building, which is where they always have been.
So,
It's just a matter
so
of-
you don't have a license right now, so
Right.
this is your livelihood that's being,
Part of it, yeah.
yes.
So with your thought process, Board of Health has yet to say, respond yea or nay. However, it appears that Board of Health is more worried about other damaged vehicles,
Right.
that kind of stuff.
That are outside
That are
the
outside
area,
this particular area.
outside the area which is in subject of site plan review.
And I'm gonna, in the past, I mean, the tow companies, they drop them off at night, have no idea that they're coming. You know, who come in the morning, whose car is that? You know, we never know. But if we're there, we usually try to get them, put them in the backyard or down the other end of the building where we can, you know, kind of control what's going on with them. Well, most of them, I'll say 8 out of 10 are just cars that are not drivable. They have suspension damage or bumpers hanging off. Not every one of them is leaking anything, you know. So, but the ones that are, you know, and I get their point, you know, I mean, I invested in the signs they wanted and all the containment trays and all that, and so I understand. And there is an issue there. There is an issue with the septic system. And it's been there, according to the people that are doing the drilling, been there for a long time. It's down in the rock, stuff like that. So they're,
But you're helping to address that on another side that has nothing to do with what we're looking at.
right, yep, that's all down the other end.
And you don't even own that septic system.
I don't own the building.
Yeah.
It's, well, I probably opened up another can of worms when I wanted them to tie into the sewer, because we were gonna build a new bath, and, didn't realize that you know, I had to be handicap accessible, and all this stuff, it was gonna take up half of the other side of the building that
then you'll be back looking for more
And
parking.
then I'll be looking for more space. So I've kind of put that on hold, but I think that's going to happen now that issues go on with this.
Ken, do you have the permit in front of you online? Exactly what the request is? It's not yours. So if we decide to take a vote, or we know what we're... It's been so long now.
Yeah, I know, and I apologize.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I should have been at the other meetings explaining what was going on, but
You're here now, that's good. My colleagues fought me off, I was going to cancel it.
Is this what you're looking for?
So this is the original,
that's the,
and this
and then
is,
I had that.
so you.
Did you find it?
What's that, Ken?
You found it?
I've got the drawings, yes.
Okay.
Ken, I've got something from you, dated December 13th, 2021.
Oh, yeah, those are just some general planning comments. Before the public
I
hearing
think this is,
opened. Yeah, it was an application with a site plan and drawing.
This whole pretty close. This is probably the original drawing that I made up 20 years ago. And I had Laura Gay come in and actually draw it to scale.
What is this read?
What does it read?
did you want to see this, Ken?
No, I'm okay.
Customer cars.
I couldn't print it any bigger.
I mean, it's, just looking at this, these are his driveway cutouts. The same here. This is the island. You have the driveway cutouts. He's only going to fit as many cars in between that island as he is here, where I think this wasn't to scale. This was just a quick sketch. So I think as far as saying that he's going to have that many cars, you know,
The only thing, in my opinion, that's up for discussion is this right here.
okay.
In my-
Yeah, I mean, they have, I don't know how many cars, or 10 maybe. Honestly, I don't think you could fit 10 cars there, but
Right.
to scale, I guess every time you use a parking spot, usually they're all angled differently, so
Right.
it doesn't show the employee parking. That's here.
And it's all pre-existing.
Oh, I saw this back in December, so. Just January.
So what do you want to do with it, board?
I mean, I personally don't see any issue with it. I mean, the cars that are being parked down on that far side, they're the ones that are already done with the repairs, you know, other than a few pieces waiting for paint. He's also moved those cars up. I don't know if you guys have noticed driving by. They're not tucked way in the back near the swamp anymore. He's moved them up further on the driveway. I mean, I personally don't see a problem with this. He's addressing another issue, you know, on the other end of the building, which is what the Board of Health seemed most concerned about. I mean, I personally don't see an issue with this.
Where does the paving end? I know it's not-
Well, it's gravel and it's
It's not-
probably like along the tree line. I'm not sure exactly the footage, but these cars, we've been, and I know in the past, some of the tow companies have dropped them way back against the tree line, but we've been trying to keep them right on the gravel. There's a gravel area that goes kind of behind. So, and I instructed all my guys not to go past that gravel with these cars, and they move them in and out. Mostly in the morning, you move them out, or sometimes when you're done on your side, they'll drive them down this end, park them, waiting to go into this side of the building to be prepped for paint. So,
Well, some of that's gravel, but some of it's paved.
some of it's paved.
Up near the building.
Yeah, up to, like right here is paved, and then all of this is gravel.
And it goes all the way around, right? Like a fire
Yeah.
road all the way around?
Well, there's a fence that cuts it off, but yeah, this is paved, and then it turns to gravel and goes into back here. And this one is paved into gravel back here. This is all ours. Where they used to put all their lawnmowers and all that stuff.
Ken, do you have any thoughts on this?
No, I think the initial comments that I posed were specific to, I think after Mr. Beauregard's last appearance before the board, it was clarified as far as the improvements done to the site, and I think, you know, the holdup was the Board of Health comments. I do think that there's no increase of impervious surface, and that's usually the thing that usually initiates any sort of more lengthy review. It's if the planning board feels that where the cars are parked, the way that it's presented, and understanding that, you know, there's no, at least I don't think was there going to be an increase in impervious surface? You weren't going to like pave any additional area,
No,
right?
there was no additional paving.
Okay, yeah, I didn't, you know, other than some of the considerations that I posed before the board in that comment letter, was screening. You know, that's a very challenging site because of the way that it is, that it abuts 202. But that was probably the biggest, just because it's now before the board, and what normally happens in the process is that has to comply with the zoning, right? And usually, that is the discussion that would come up. But as far as what's presented, and it just looks like it's a presentation of the parking plan and some increased parking spots or increased cars. And I think it was clarified as far as how it would interact with some of the rear area of the building, that I don't think that they're, you know.
So what does the application say? What are they asking for?
That application says, reason for application for special permit is use of complete, no. I think the application probably, it doesn't say. The way that it was presented, is that it says proposed use, auto body repair, reason for application for special permit, use of complete existing building. You know, I think we were trying to because this has been we've been talking about this for a while, right? Based on what the select board had presented to the planning board, you're right, for over a year. So I think, because the select board hadn't acted, and then Mr. Beauregard, came to the planning board with this application and presented what he thought that the planning board would need to review, which the public hearing notice states that it's the site plan approval for the current use. But it's a presentation of a new parking plan. So however the board wants to interact with that, they can.
The original issue was when I submitted another drawing like this, I had drawn in some cars down here, which brought it to the attention that, I'm adding all these cars in there, which I did, but that's what brought all this to their attention. I was like, this was my site plan for years and years and years. I just kept sending the same thing in because it's exactly what I was doing until I started working on that side of the building. And then I added the cars in there, which probably shouldn't have, but I did.
So if we were to vote on this, would it be?
What are we approving? Because if the application says nothing,
So what we're approving is the difference between this plan and this one.
The public notice said proposed expansion. So however the board wants to read into that, whether it's an expansion of now more cars being parked on site or more physical parking spaces, you can suggest that in your motion if you're trying to figure out what exactly you're going to approve. Is that approve the site plan as presented, you can put a date on it.
So the way I would present it would be to vote on, the motion would be to approve the reconfiguration of parking spaces based on said plan, which includes 5 additional spaces on the westerly side of the building.
isn't there a north arrow up there while you're done?
It's on the southerly side, thank you. On the southerly side of the building, to be used as vehicles in queue for painting. So, I mean, nothing's changed here and here other than this. And
And it was all gravel anyway.
it was all gravel anyway. It's there's 24, 25 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 24 spaces. So the motion should read a total of 24 non-employee spaces and the 5 allowed on the southerly end. Otherwise,
But that doesn't do him any good with cars being parked that are at the beginning of the line.
well,
I mean, just.
this is what we're really improving.
Right.
But we're also mentioning a total of 24 spaces for non-employee parking, 20 parkings over here, where we would vote on allowing 24 parking spaces,
Front and south side of the building.
front and south side of the building, with a maximum of 5 on the south side, to be used for in-queue repairs and sales. I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but this thing's been going on for a long time, and it's,
Or we can condense all that, as Ken said, we approve the proposed expansion. Or you want to get the number of parking places?
Yeah, I think we,
You know, at 20, what's it, 24?
excluding
No,
employee
no.
parking.
They probably never have that many out there.
Well, you want to go back and come back with another plan?
I'm just saying, it's probably not going to be the 24 out there, but I wish I had that kind of work, but unfortunately I don't. But
Who knows, maybe we'll get another good snowstorm for you.
I don't need another ice storm. That is crazy.
So what,
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, the hearing's closed to the public. Is what the motion is, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 4.
Now we're open, no,
No more further input from the public.
Right.
Okay.
so now we're in just discussion among ourselves. I think we've had that discussion. I would like the chairman, well, if everybody agrees, I'd like the chairman to make the motion as was previously discussed.
I'll make the motion to approve the site plan as presented, to expand and reconfigure parking spaces of up to 24 spaces for non-employees, which would include vehicles under repair and for sale. With a maximum of 5 vehicles as shown on the southerly side of the building.
Do you want to say something in front of the building and on the southerly side?
Well, as planned shows.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You can sit down now. Don't fall down. You can sit down. You're good. You'll get a letter stating what
It'll be at least a couple of weeks.
you'll sign off on and go to the select board
Okay,
and address that.
very good.
Thanks a lot. Have a good night.
Okay, so the hearing's over with, and we're back to our regular,
Reconvene, yeah.
reconvene to our regular planning board meeting at 6:14. Next on the agenda, review Pioneer Valley Planning Commission survey for master plan update.
That was what I shared with the board earlier. If you guys want to, if the board wants to take a look and just provide any comments, and maybe we can discuss it at the following meeting, which is scheduled for the 28th. I probably will be asking the board within the next 2 meetings, maybe for that meeting on the 28th, to also include the updates to the physical master plan document, just for consideration, just for the board's information, as we've been working with town staff to draft that. But it's not going to be a formal approval of any sort. It's just more for information and for a presentation for the board. And I'll work with the chair if the meeting on the 28th doesn't work. But I don't think, now that you've closed both public hearings, that there isn't any public hearings coming up.
Okay, so our next scheduled hearing, or scheduled meeting is the 28th.
Yeah.
I will not be here.
Okay.
I won't. And based on our agenda, we should probably take one of these meetings, unless there's something critical or something, put a half hour, 45 minutes aside just to, the old business with the bylaw changes. And give Ken some direction to, we're pretty much there anyway. We just,
Yeah.
let's just go over it one more time, send it to the selectmen, and then,
So I have based on some of the discussions that we've had previously, I have a draft memo to send to the select board. What I learned is that the town meeting is on May 8th.
yeah.
So obviously, the board needs to have a public hearing prior to that. I suggested to the chair in an email to him that maybe we schedule a public hearing, because it happened at this time last year, but it was virtual at the time. But to schedule a public hearing for the first meeting in March, so get that posted. I think what we can do, if it's okay with the board, just to get a public hearing scheduled, schedule that, but if there's a need to continue, do that. But just to get the public notice out so that we have a public hearing scheduled for these bylaw amendments.
Let's give ourselves enough leeway so that we can continue it,
Right,
because typically we don't get everything vetted in one.
right. So all of those documents are prepared in draft form. A public hearing notice, if the board wants to proceed with those I shared it maybe a month ago, some of the bylaw amendments that are floating out there. Again, that's the solar amendment. I've been getting emails from that property owner and the applicant
I as well.
representative. I think you've been copied with regards to that. So I think it's a pretty simple bylaw amendment, but it's at the
How many
board's-
articles were there?
We have 3 proposed, I think. One of them is the solar language. One of them is, and this, we were having discussion with that prospective property owner for the private event venue. And then we also had some minor updates to the site plan procedure, specifically with regards to public notification, public meeting versus public hearing.
Correct, yeah.
So those were the main bylaws to look at. I know the board has in the past, because we've done, I think I recall maybe 2 summers ago where we were looking at the solar every week. I don't know if you're gonna need those lead up to a public hearing, but I think it's, however the board wants to proceed with that. But we
So-
do have to have a public hearing for them.
So what I think we should do is have 3 hearings, separate hearings for each of those items the same night.
Mhm.
Sure.
They're not big items, they should be fairly.
The biggest one would be the private event venue.
Yeah.
So, and we're now meeting in person, so.
Okay. That's everything on the agenda. Any other? Anybody have anything else they want to bring up, talk about?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.